All right, so without further ado, I would love to go ahead and introduce Representative Jennifer Dailey-Provost. She is from District 24 and has been in the legislature since 2019. Jennifer has been a huge advocate for the work that we do, and we are just so very grateful for her being here today and taking some time to talk with us about the importance of advocacy. So Jen, I wasn't sure if you had slides or anything that you wanted to share. Okay, then I will just leave it on here. And you are welcome to take it away. And thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you, Aubrey, and thank you everybody for having me. I really appreciate it. Just as a quick note, we are scheduled in Social Services Appropriations this morning, where we are actually actively talking right now. When I stepped out, we're talking about the need to increase pay rate for support providers for people with disabilities and their families. And so please know that these conversations are happening right now, and there are a lot of really great people advocating for these important issues. I know that this is one particular issue for people in the disability community this year, given that we have a stated obligation, both at a state level and at a family level, to provide the very best care that we can for people with disabilities and their families. And this is, as many of you know, we're beyond crisis status on this issue. And so we're working on making sure that that we improve the environment so that everybody in our state who needs specialty care has the very best care that we can possibly provide for them, so that we can maximize standard of living, quality of life, and good health outcomes for everybody in our state. So I'm really excited to be working on that. To the advocacy piece on that, part of the reason that this has become an important issue that Social Services Appropriations is talking about on our very first meeting is because of community advocacy that we've received via email and phone calls over the last couple of weeks. And so hearing stories about families, about the care providers that really benefit both the patients and the families, that really benefit from the professionalism and the hard work of care providers, has been very impactful. And I just want to point that out in case anybody feels like when they're advocating, sometimes it feels like you're yelling into a chasm and you don't know if anybody's listening or if anything is going to happen. It doesn't always work. And I can say from years of experience and working on the Social Services Appropriations budget that we never have enough to go around. We never have enough to provide the services that I think that we should provide. But it is making a difference. And please know that those personal conversations, those personalized letters, the ability, not just for people who have disabilities, but the families, friends of those people advocating is resonating. And this is really key to citizen advocacy and for a community to advocate for itself, but to also find team members and other people in the community who are excited and encouraged to join in this conversation. I also wanted to just mention that I've got a bill, it's numbered, it's HB 150, that will create a disability ombudsman office in the state of Utah. As we look at barriers that people with disabilities face in the state of Utah, there's a really big gap between people having the resources that they need and deserve and the ability to breach barriers that is not being met. And right now, I think that many people who are facing insurmountable barriers to access don't feel that they have a voice or a path or a mechanism. A few people find the right advocates and know somebody who knows somebody. Too many people feel like their only option is to resort to filing a lawsuit. And when your only option is to sue the state of Utah, that's not access. You know, we like to think that the courts, everybody has access to the courts, but it's not accessible. It's expensive. it's really hard to find attorneys who can work on these very intensive, many years long cases, years where people are languishing without resources. And it's good that the courts are there for the right reasons. And I have to give a huge amount of credit to the Disability Law Center, who does amazing work in advocating for the needs and access for people in our community. But it shouldn't always be a last resort. The last resort shouldn't be the only resort. And this is not me in any way diminishing all of the hard work that people do in the state of Utah in advocating for people with disabilities, in assisting them. But if you don't know what the resources are and you don't know how to find them, then you essentially don't have those resources. And so my hope with creating this ombudsman office is to create a centralized place, a state intention to connect people with resources, to identify barriers, to learn how to break them down, to help people overcome them, and also to make policy decisions at the state level where we've recognized that these barriers exist, and that there is a policy move, something that we can do in statute, pass laws to eliminate or mitigate or lessen those barriers. And so this office is designed to be that central hub of advocacy, to connect people with the resources, but also how all of the resources connect with one another, to connect those dots, to assist with onerous paperwork that may be very difficult for some to fill out, or to assist with websites that are hard to navigate, or if somebody has a barrier just accessing the internet or reading things online, there needs to be an easy to find advocate, someone whose job is to help address those individualized barriers and problems. And sometimes it just comes down to letting people know what resources are there, that those problems can be addressed, but the family member or the person with the disability just doesn't know that they're there. And so I'm really excited about this bill. I think we've been working on it for a long time with advocates. Tyler Black at DHS did an amazing job pulling stakeholders together, because the original bill was to create this study, the stakeholder study, and with the results of that study that have been published, we've now crafted that into legislation for the upcoming session. So again, when it comes to advocacy, reach out to your legislators, reach out to your friends and family and your neighbors and your communities and your churches, and please ask them to contact their legislator to support this legislation. I think that I truly believe that it will make a big difference, both for outcomes for people with disabilities and their families, and to really elevate the state of Utah and provide a national standard on how we can advocate for our communities better. So those are a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. I would love as much support for this legislation as we can possibly get. Other than that, I think that this Disability Advocacy Day is one of the highlights of my session every year. I'm honored to be invited to join you and to visit with you about these things. I also look forward to the day again someday when we can meet in person and not have people at risk with serious health implications in just being at the Capitol. Access, this comes down to access again, and I can't wait to see you all in person. But until then, please know I'm so excited to hear from you, to answer questions, to address concerns, to hear as a policymaker how we can do better. We all do our best to understand the lay of the land, but we just don't know what we don't know. And your experiences, your lived experiences are so valuable in informing policymakers on how we can do better. And so please don't be shy about reaching out via email, making phone calls, sending a letter in the mail. I am not alone when I say that many of us are excited to hear from you. And again, just excited to be working arm in arm with many of you for many years on these advocacy issues, and excited for the opportunity to serve in elected office and to bring forth legislation that will help. Aubrey, did we want to open it up for any questions? I do have a little bit of a time constraint because I do want to get back to social services so I can advocate for that funding. But I don't want to miss an opportunity to answer questions or hear comments or advice on how to move forward with policy.
If you are open to it, we can go ahead and allow for, does 5 minutes sound okay? Can we squeeze that in?
That's great. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
I got something, Aubrey.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
I'm sorry. So Representative, so saying that we do need funding for caregivers, and I know with this stimulus, how is that coming into play, if that makes sense? I mean, how is that being all tied together?
So right now in the governor's budget, which is, so every new bit, statutorily, the requirement for any increase of funding from us by a state agency, so in this case, the Department of Human Services, the requests for new funding have to come from the governor's office, which is why he proposes such a comprehensive budget every year. And then the individual agencies then come to social services appropriations and say, this is what we want in the form of a building block. And what the governor has proposed is a 6.5% increase in funding for care providers. Now, this is not a 6.5% increase in hourly wages for those employees. It's a 6.5% increase in the total budget allocated to care providers that are funded through the state. And so those care providers would then make a decision on how they would allocate that, if they're going to put that toward increasing the hourly rate for care providers. I think that it goes without saying that there is a strong push that a huge portion of that funding would have to go, absolutely have to go to provide better pay, to provide a livable wage for care providers. Because as everybody here knows, we're seeing a huge exodus of care providers who like the work, who are good at the work, who are professionals in the work, but can make more money elsewhere doing work that's not as intensive. This is intensive, hard work. And, you know, we all, I think many of us, most of us really enjoy the opportunity to do work that that really takes advantage of our skill set. But at the end of the day, we have to pay people what they're worth. And so that, you know, I want to make sure that 6.5% increase doesn't mean we're proposing a 6.5% increase to the hourly rate. That 6.5% increase on the entire budget is actually quite a bit more for that. And that will necessarily translate to a dramatic increase in the pay, in the hourly pay rate for those care providers. Does that answer your question?
I guess my question was, I mean, yeah, I mean, like you said, there is a crisis for that right now. But I mean, a lot of the complaints I've been getting from other people who are caregivers in the field is that McDonald's is getting, they're getting paid more at McDonald's than they are as caregivers. So with that 6% raise, you think that may be higher, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so it's not a 6.5% raise on the hourly rate for the care providers. The 6.5% increase is for the budget for the entire organization. And
Okay.
so that should, we hope, we believe that would translate to 15, 20, or 30% increase in hourly wages for those care providers. Because if we do less than that, we're not going to get where we need.
All right, that makes sense.
Because you're right, people can go to Little Caesars or McDonald's and make more money, and it's not as gratifying work by any stretch of the imagination, but it's easier, and we don't want people leaving meaningful careers, but we don't blame them. So if we can't at least match or exceed those hourly rates for less skilled work, then we're never going to solve the problem. So there is a recognition that like I said, I don't want that 6.5% number to think that it translates to that percentage being the hourly rate increase. That's the whole organization's budget. And then a larger relative proportion of that budget increase would go to increasing salary for workers.
Okay. Thank you so much, Representative.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks for asking the question. It's a great clarification.
Yeah, thank you, Carl, so much. Okay, we have a question in the chat from Stephen Phelps. He says, what is the likelihood of the Sped special education funding formula rule being passed?
So I'm not sure. I think that goes to the education budget, but let me look into that. And Aubrey, I'll just follow up with you via email if that's okay.
That would be great. And then
Thank you. I apologize. I'm not sure. I haven't worked on it.
You're fine. Are you okay to take one more question? Then we'll let you go.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So Roland Brown says, just wanted to get an idea of how long these type of legislation take. How long was HB 150 on the drawing board and hammered out before it was actually adopted?
That's a great question. So this was originally, the bill to create the study was passed in the 2020 session. And it took a little bit longer than we had anticipated because of COVID. So there was a fiscal note to fund that study. It got defunded when after the 2020 session, when we pulled back a lot of the building blocks for these things. But the Department of Human Services pressed forward and conducted the study anyway. They did it without funding. And so the fact that they managed to squeeze that into all the hard work that they do really speaks volumes to how committed the employees there are. We finished the study just this last summer, and so the bill is up for consideration in this session. If it passes, it will go into effect officially July 1st of this year. So it would be for creation and funding beginning in the new fiscal year, which begins July 1st every year. And so, broadly, Roland, the legislation can take a year, or sometimes it takes a couple of decades. In my first session, we passed legislation for enhanced hate crimes, and that bill took 18 years to pass. So I'm hoping that this will not take, I don't think this will take even close to that long, but it is, unfortunately, too often it's a grindingly slow process, but it's the process that we've got, and we're trying to make the most of it, which is why I come back to how important that advocacy is, convincing legislators that this is absolutely needed legislation now and cannot wait another year.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Representative Jennifer Dailey-Provost. We appreciate you so much for being here today, for taking time away from your committee meeting. Thank you for all of
course.
You do.
I'm going to answer. Matthew Huskinson asked one more question. I'm just going to address really quick, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So when you go on the legislative website and click on the tab on bills, it's le.utah.gov. Click on the tab that says bills. You can search for HB 150, and there's a status tab that will tell you where it's at in the process. So it will move from rules committee to a standing committee. When it passes a standing committee, it goes to the floor, and so you can kind of watch that process. Ultimately, if and when it passes, we'll say when it passes. That status page will say bill enrolled, and eventually it will say signed by the governor. But you can also click on a tracking button on that page, and you'll get email updates on every time something happens with the bill. You'll get sent an email saying, it passed committee, it passed the House, it's being heard in Senate committee, etc. So
thank you. And
that helps.
That was an excellent question. That was a good follow-up. So thank you for asking that. Okay, well, thank you again.
Thank you.
We so appreciate your time, and thank you.